Welcome to episode 24 of the Chi-Town Shoot Wrestling Podcast. I'm Marcin, and joining me in the squared circle are Chris, David, and Andres. We're coming at you from the heart of the wrestling world, Chicago, Illinois, bringing you the latest news, hottest takes, and all things WWE and AEW. Don't forget, send us your thoughts, questions, and wildest predictions to chi-town-shoot-podcast@gmail.com, and we'll tackle your comments in the Chi-Town Shoot mailbag. Without further ado, let's ask how everyone's doing. It's been, well, it honestly hasn't been that long, I feel. It's been 2 weeks, I guess.
Wow.
As of this recording, a whole bunch of stuff is happening. Holidays, Thanksgiving, AEW in Chicago. But yeah, David, how are you doing? How's your 2 weeks been treating you?
Cool. Watching wrestling.
Are you excited for I
Always
guess this will be
excited.
after Survivor Series, but are you excited for Survivor Series?
Always excited. Excited to go to Dynamite too.
Hell yeah.
And Collision, man, we're going on a Wednesday and Saturday in the same day.
Yeah, we're
yeah.
going Back to the Future.
We finally get to time travel.
That should be fun. What about you, Andres? What's new with you?
A whole lot of nothing, really. Just still working, doing 2 jobs, getting ready for the holiday season, getting ready for AEW tomorrow. So that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
By the time you know it, it'll be 2025. That's how the latter half or the latter part of the year generally is. Chris, you got I saw you went shopping for some ornaments. Are you already setting up your tree?
We were talking about today, but we just went out of the house just to kind of, because we were getting stir crazy. She was working on stuff and doing nothing. So we got up, went to Hobby Lobby, and got some got some ornaments.
So-
Hobby Lobby.
So, so are you just adding to your tree, or are you like removing some and you're getting a new theme on your tree?
So we were trying to do like a emerald gold color. So we got plenty of gold. We don't have any green. Got like 2 things of green, and then a couple like random ornaments. I was trying to get like a really like tacky look to some of the other stuff in the house, like so the table runner and the like kitchen towels and stuff like that. So we're trying to look for that kind of aesthetic.
Like Wizard of Oz or like Munchkin Land? Like, what are you trying to go for?
Yeah, like sugar plum fairies, nutcracker, like that kind of thing. Top hats. Just that like old time, ye old Christmas time.
Okay.
Got it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think right now we're probably not going to do the tree until Sunday, I guess, when Patrick gets back, because he'll be in Ohio for Thanksgiving. We did some like internal decorations, like the immediate stuff. Like the TV stand is all Christmased out. There was like a cool what do you call those, like those frilly things? Like they're not wreaths. Jeez, what? Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, but it's not a boa, but yeah, what something that looks like that.
You got the Hulk Hogan thing laid
Tinsel. Yeah, it's got like fake like holographic Christmas light things attached to them, so it's just kind of like encircled around that TV stand at the top. So it's like, and we
Not
have
garland, is it?
Oh, garland. That's probably the
Is
right
it garland?
word. Garland. Yeah, garland. Garland's the right word. But it's fake. It's not like a real garland. And the cats still try and sit on it. Like it's decked out in Christmas stuff. There isn't really much places for them to like sit on it, but he still finds a place to sit on it. And it's generally the router, because he likes the warmth of it, and occasionally chewing on the router antenna.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so Christmas season, holiday season, it's always fun, and then it really flies by. But it's also Survivor Series season, and it's about to be WrestleMania season. Speaking of WWE, there's a story that's been in the news for at least a month now, I think, a month, if not a little more, and that's with the WWE independent development ID program. They call it WWE ID for short, which I think is actually pretty clever because their marketing basically is if they identify somebody, this person has been ID'd. So it's kind of a double entendre. And I thought it's pretty cool. And essentially, it's created to provide a path for independent wrestlers who want to build careers in WWE. So it's not NXT. It's like it's before that. And this is something that I think I'm still not completely clear, like how that works. If you've been ID'd, are they just keeping a close eye on them? I'm not sure. But we'll get into it after I talk a little bit more about what they said. It's essentially structured to support promising independent wrestling talent and training schools by providing access to world-class training, development, and mentorship. The initiative is set to improve the profile of the independent wrestling community and contribute to its growth and sustainability, which that should be interesting how they do that. Through WWE ID, select premier independent wrestling schools across the U.S. will receive the WWE ID designation, helping guide new trainees and current talent with advanced developmental resources. Talent is listed, so there's a number of talent that they listed alphabetically, and they include the dates that they were announced by WWE. There's a lot of male talent that they've already ID'd. People like Aaron Rourke, Ice Williams, Jackson Drake, Marcus Mathers, who's from GCW. Jack Summons is also GCW. I'm trying to think who else here. Zeta Steele's from CZW. And there's a number of schools that have already been put underneath the WWE ID banner. No surprise, a lot of them are affiliated with WWE superstars. So Black and Brave Wrestling, that's a Seth Rollins school. Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center. I don't know if it's associated with anybody, but it's in Concord, New Hampshire, which I think is kind of like Triple H
Kowalski.
territory. Kowalski, yeah. So it's like Triple H territory,
Ciampa
basically.
went there.
Who?
Ciampa.
Oh yeah. So like a little, it's basically Triple H territory because Ciampa's like a young Triple H.
Well, Killer Kowalski trained Triple H.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
DX.
And Knox Pro Entertainment and Academy in Van Nuys, California.
Yeah.
Nightmare
right.
Factory, of course, in McDonough, Georgia, owned by Cody Rhodes and isn't it QT Marshall? Isn't he also at Nightmare Factory? That should be interesting.
Yeah,
The Doom.
Yeah, the Doom
Yeah.
and Boom. And Reality of Wrestling, which is Booker T's wrestling school, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Sponsored by
Yeah.
Blue Chew.
Yeah,
Strap the
we should
rocket
get
to it, man.
We should get a Blue Cheese sponsorship and have all of the puns. But yeah, so those are the schools that currently have been ID'd. Honestly, because Chicago is such a big wrestling community and city, I expect them to do something with some of the schools in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. I think we're all kind of hoping maybe Freelance gets into that realm, and I don't know how exactly that works because fire alarm.
Damn.
Whatchamacallit? I just forgot her name. Kylie Ray. She wrestles for Freelance Wrestling, but I guess so Matt Nix presented her with a WWE ID, but Freelance, I'm assuming, is still not part of the actual program itself. So I'm kind of curious what that looks like, because I feel like Freelance Wrestling should be part of that. If they had to pick an independent wrestling school, I mean, Mustafa Ali came through there. I mean, there's a bunch of people who are also in AEW. I feel like it has a crop of talent that could really
Bad
I
apple.
think can shine. What's that?
The bad apple.
The bad apple, yes.
But
So, I mean,
well,
yeah.
the question is how well. There must be some association if Kylie Ray is technically freelance, and then he was able to secure this WWE ID thing to present to her. So there must be some kind of partnership or something.
I mean, does he secure it, or do they reach out to, them and say, hey, we want her to be in this program?
I mean, I don't
You
know.
know?
That's the question.
So obviously, because I listed out all the people who were ID'd, and I mean, these promotions, I don't think they're all tied to those schools that I mentioned. And I don't think all of them have schools either, right? Like some of them are just indie wrestling promotions.
I
Uh,
think some of the people that get through the program, sometimes they only spend like short stints in schools. 'Cause
right.
a lot of these programs are 4 months, so I think the people with names on it are just like long mainstays.
hmm So, I mean, what do you guys think about WWE launching this independent development program? Like general thoughts, Chris. I guess what do you think this means for the independent scene? Like, how does this shape the independent? It's a loaded question, but I'll just start with a general. I guess, how do you feel about the program? And we could dive into the other parts.
I mean, I think it's great because then it just really includes a lot of these like independent circuits in something so big, being the WWE machine. So it just gives, I feel it just gives more incentive for a lot of these guys who are like wrestling for how they say a hot dog and some change or whatever to have some kind of incentive to just do better within their circuit, right?
A
So
hot dog and a handshake.
right. So I think it's good, very good. I think so. I'm hoping that like somebody like AEW and then I don't know TNA or something like that will follow suit and have some kind of a funneling program for these independent wrestlers to have an outlet because that just makes the business better because then you have all these people that are going left and right to all these different companies and it's like you'll never have short of talent versus probably it might be potentially cheaper for WWE specifically to do something like this versus like spending a bunch of money for like a TV program for like Tough Enough or something like that to find like talent. So it might be potentially cheaper to just do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with, like what do these partnerships look like between the WWE and these like potential, wrestling promotions and schools. So right now, it's the schools are involved, and then they're picking wrestlers from these certain promotions. But I'm curious how if there's going to be any kind of funding or some kind of safety net or some kind of like structure for these independent wrestling promotions to potentially benefit from with a WWE partnership, funding, resources, training, that kind of stuff, having the ability to you know be a member of the community, like fostering wrestling in local communities, but also having the backing of like a giant wrestling company like WWE. If it goes the way that I hope it goes, I think it's nothing but positive. Um, and
No, for sure.
yeah, Andres, what do you think about the prospect of a WWE ID program?
I think it's great too. Like it's going to be help opening possibly more opportunity and getting more wrestlers like more known out there in the independents. Like granted, like social media is a big help with that, but like you now have like the biggest wrestling company in the world, like giving more of an opportunity to you to being recognized, even if it's just a simple ID card.
Hmm
So yeah, I don't know, but like not knowing too much, like, but I remember when I first heard about it, I'm like, that's awesome. Because if I was an independent wrestler and that was a thing now, I'd be like, holy crap, like, that's a great opportunity if I can get on that program too.
Yeah.
So I
David,
think it's awesome.
yeah, David, what do you think about this program?
I think it's cool. I think it's good for everybody. Uh, from even just like the I would say even just like the fans, because it's like people that are just like even guys like us who are freelance regulars, and like we kind of know when when professionals are like ex like super pros are coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just like now it's gonna be nice to know that you're seeing somebody with like with this isn't their ceiling. Not that it's almost guaranteed
Right.
that it's not their ceiling. So
Yeah.
it helps you like look forward to things. It makes you want to check out local stuff more to see
Right.
who else might come through the door. Even like Cappuccino Jones, who's on there. I seen him in a parking lot last summer. So it's like it's crazy because it's like now he's gonna be a prospect in the WWE. He's since then I seen him on Ring of Honor. So it's just like it makes that point at TV. That's him moment.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll add this.
yeah.
I'll add this. It's kind of like reverse trickle down economics, where you're taking from the roots, like somebody like a Kylie Ray, and just taking some of her fan base from this like kind of local independent scene, which is very kind of like punk rock, kind of like DIY thing, and you potentially are taking this group of people and then moving them up to that mainstream, just to kind of have them follow this person so they can be like, oh, I remember her when she was in freelance or whatever. So I think it's nothing but good, because that's just going to happen across the country. It's like a weird like territories thing, but it's not like a territories thing, you know what I mean? Where you're just like you're kind of going into these different pockets of the different areas in the United States. Well, that's another question. Is it international as well? So is it besides just like the United States? Is it also like Europe and Asia?
That's a good question. I feel like this might be scratching that concept that Triple H talked about when it came to NXT, because they wanted to expand NXT and have an NXT on like every continent. Now they had NXT UK, but I think that's just is done.
That closed from the pandemic.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate. And I'm curious to see if maybe this is their way of like creating this concept of like a farming system internationally, because WWE ID isn't tied to, at least as I know, like to just the United States. Obviously WWE is World Wrestling Entertainment, and they're trying to be global. Most of their their PLEs this year have been around the world, so I don't see them limiting to just, you know, United States independent wrestling companies. Um, that would be interesting to see if and when that happens. I think it will.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like how this is actually going to roll out and what it looks like, because I'm still kind of unclear about the the pathway for like these people. So you get ID'd, and then what? Like, are you still an independent wrestler? Are you now in some kind of like special training program? I don't know what that looks like. It like, do you then go to NXT? If you're good enough, are they just gonna call you up straight to SmackDown or Raw? I don't know what that looks like when you get ID'd. I'm not clear on that.
We'll
From
find
my
out soon, I'm sure.
understanding, from my understanding, they're supposed to treat themselves similar to how the NIL prospects treat themselves, where it's just like keep doing your thing. You now have WWE's backing. Will be
Can you
around.
explain what NIL is? Because I mean, I don't know,
That's their
but I'm
next
sure
in
some
line.
people.
That's their
Okay.
next in line program. So that's for their collegiate athletes.
Oh,
So
right. You're right.
a lot of people like for example, Obafemi is somebody who I believe was part of their NIL. I might be wrong, but he was collegiate track and field.
So these are
And
people who are in sports, like in collegiate sports, and this is like that pipeline for WWE.
the NIL program, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's going to eventually just become some kind of like one umbrella, because I know that they, like you mentioned, they have that collegiate program that allows college students who maybe not necessarily get into like a professional, another sport. They have an opportunity in WWE.
It's
Because with
also
the
a scholarship for them.
yeah,
Like education.
yeah, I mean scholarships, and then this ID thing. I mean, like in the past, it's not like indie wrestlers have never gone to WWE. That's, I mean, obviously that's not true. I mean, for people like Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, Bryan Danielson, like they all kind of carved their own path. There wasn't like a clear pipeline for them to it. They just got to WWE. In some instances, maybe they got lucky. They just worked really hard. I think this is a very concentrated effort. So this is different from what, independent wrestling has been in the past. And I think I think it's a positive. Um, Before we move on, I have, I guess, two more questions about WWE ID. Do you think there's a potential negative to this program?
One thing came to mind for me is that like, what if like if the school is ID'd by WWE, does this ban AEW from scouting those schools or other companies like
That's a
TNA
good
as well?
question.
Maybe not TNA, but because WWE kind of like crosses paths with them with their wrestlers, but like AEW specifically though.
I
Gang
doubt it.
territory, gang, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
it's kind of like the Allstate Arena where AEW can't come there because WWE has a contract there. At least that's what I heard.
I doubt it. A lot of times, like right now, NXT, like for example, GCW's Bloodsport stuff. There's AEW there, there's NXT there, there's TNA there.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure they have found a way to keep it cordial without tampering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question because it's so early. I will be curious to see if WWE goes like, Machiavellian and tries to be a little more territorial when it comes to, places they work with, and if there are restrictions, you know. But again, like the people who get ID'd, it's not like everybody in that wrestling promotion gets ID'd. I mean, the people who get ID'd want to go to WWE. It's not like they're forcing these wrestlers to do it, or like, oh, I wanted to go to AEW, but I'm being forced to go to WWE. I don't think any of them are put in that position. But I am curious to see like if it will eventually just kind of naturally like just have more people into WWE than wanting to go to AEW purely because this program exists.
I would
Like
also be
yeah.
be curious to see, does it change the way that independent wrestlers wrestle specifically? Will there be a prerequisite and an incentive to hit specific bullet points to be a WWE superstar? You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if that's a possibility. So,
They have
I
to do
can't,
the WWE style.
no backyard mud wrestling. You need to do this. I wonder if a lot of that stuff will die down because like, oh, I got this opportunity now. It's not just like this, pipe dream or whatever. But
I'm sure because Zilla Fatu can't wrestle GCW anymore, and he used to love throwing himself through doors.
Mm-hmm.
no more
And I feel
fluorescent
like,
light tubes.
yeah, I feel like it's going to be a natural maybe incentive for, like, it'll be an unspoken incentive for people. Like if you get ID'd in like these promotions like GCW, other wrestlers in that promotion will see that they got ID'd. So maybe they'll want to try and change their style to match WWE's style because they're like, well, this person got ID'd. I'd like to get ID'd as well. I feel like maybe that is a potential.
I think if
Is it a
anything,
negative? I don't know.
I think if anything, a lot of guys will just be and girls will probably be better at doing business when they have to on the indie side. Because
Right.
it's like, hey, you can walk into some like, you walk in there and you find out you're gonna lose to an ID. It's like, oh, just look good and make them look better. I mean, essentially that's what a wrestler's supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully it cleans up stuff like that.
Right.
Now, do you feel like, I mean, I guess we've seen like certain iterations or versions of it, like concepts like they had OVW and FCW as it was like a WWE type thing. Obviously they have NXT. Do you expect this to be permanent? Like, do you feel like this is gonna really kickstart something, or do you feel like it's gonna be like a Tough Enough or you know something like that, where it's a concept that is kind of good for a couple of years. They realize maybe it doesn't work, and then they can it. Do you see that as a possibility?
I think it'll do just fine. I think eventually the way it'll pan itself out is it's just their way of finding people who found their own way. Because if their main focus is collegiate athletes and people who have the potential to wrestle but aren't quite wrestling versus people that are being taught the wrong way, I think this should teach people that might not make it as a collegiate athlete, whether D1, 2, 3, JUNCO, like whatever. It shows them that they're, hit the gym, keep your head straight, and then show up to the right schools and do the right things, and you might just get there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I think it's just nothing but positive, to be honest. I mean, there's just like just this lingering thing now. It's like there's this opportunity in the air at all times that I could potentially be ID'd by WWE at this point, where I can have this opportunity for myself to be a wrestler on TV or whatever. So, I mean, I would say nothing but positives. The questions I think would be like, what are the logistics? I think compared to something like doing like a Tough Enough, like how much money is being spent doing this? Are they paying them some level of a salary just because they are ID? Because I remember we were talking about something about Kylie potentially having some amount of money or something for being ID'd or something like that.
Any of them, yeah.
So I mean those are the questions, but I think as it stands, it seems like, I mean, I can't see any real negatives, at least in the current way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm curious if this program is like, at least the way that I'm foreseeing it is essentially like they're going to continue working the independents because it's independent development. So there'll just be certain wrestlers who will just have access to like training and money, maybe infrastructure for like social media and that kind of stuff on one hand, and with WWE ID. I think another interesting thing to think about is now that WWE is lowering the amount of house shows that they do every year, like it's been considerably lowered. If this is potentially like a way for them to like have quote unquote house shows, but it's just like in those local wrestling promotions that they're kind of hovering around. I think that's interesting because I think they actually have like a WWE sanctioned like independent indie wrestling like show. I forgot where it was, but I think it's in December actually. Um, so I wonder if we're going to see more of that instead of like
That's
house
actually really
shows.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take actually, because like I went to a wrestling show for a friend's party, and like was Sky Blue was there. She just showed up, and what's his name showed up. Oh my god, I keep forgetting his name every time we
Will
do the pod. I
Ospreay?
always forget his name.
It was Will
Yep.
Ospreay, wasn't it?
Yeah, Osprey. Yeah, Osprey showed up, and it was a real
Oh,
small
yeah.
venue. Like it was like
Oh
a small
yeah.
gym. So it was like maybe WWE could be hosting little small things there with the independents and ID. That'd be kind of cool.
Was that the place in Franklin Park or?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It only housed like maybe like I don't know, maybe like 60 people.
It was like 10 minutes from my house. Osprey in
Yeah.
a gymnasium.
Yeah, no, it was shocking. It was cool though. Like seeing that, like holy crap, like what the hell? What's he doing here? Like, but it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff I think is more exciting because it's like very intimate stuff.
Mhm.
Obviously I'm curious if prices will go up in terms of like indie companies and pricing their tickets. I think it's fine for it to go up because I think they should earn more money. Um, and you will never get a bad seat in the house because it is still technically that same venue unless they all start bumping up to like more expensive venues. But yeah, I'll be. It'll be interesting to see like what the economy of indie wrestling will look like with the injection of WWE money and resources into these schools and the presence of them in their promos. That'll be interesting to see. But anyways, I think we'll jump into our main conversation, and I wanted to talk about streaming and wrestling and streaming. The streaming era, for the longest time, it's been traditional television, you know, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, Wednesday Night Dynamite, Saturday Night Collision, TNA, NXT. I think there's wrestling every day of the week on a wrestling network, and slowly it will be all moving to a streaming service, whether it's Netflix or Max for AEW. And WWE pay-per-views have been on quote unquote streaming services for the better part of a decade now. I think it's been actually it's been 14 years actually, not or not 14, 11 years, sorry. It's been 11 years. Because WWE Network, I think, started right before WrestleMania 30. That was the first WrestleMania that was streaming on the network
for $9.99.
Yeah. So, well, I guess I want to start with that. Do you guys remember the network? Of course. Were you early adopters of the WWE Network, and what did you think of the network when you first got it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I signed up early for it. I signed up to get the alert when it was ready for download.
Yeah, I think I was like one of the first people too, because I was stoked because I think for me the prospect was like, and it didn't come into fruition. It was like, oh, you know, I don't want to buy a cable package, you know, pay like $50 or $60 just to watch Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, because that would be the only thing that I would want to watch live. Everything else I didn't care for, you know, but we ended up getting the like cable for a while, um, because we were living on Sawyer, and everyone had something they wanted to watch, so it kind of worked out that way. But you know, when the network came out for $9.99, I hoped that, you know, they would be streaming Raw and SmackDown. That didn't happen, but I mean, they had all their documentaries. They had monthly PLEs, which is another thing I want to talk about because now we changed the acronym of the shows. And yeah, like you said, it was amazing. It was $9.99.
It
And
never
I was
crashed.
Yes, it never crashed. I don't think it never crashed. I think there might have been like slight buffering during WrestleMania 30, but I mean it was doing considerably better than Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson for sure. Um,
How much
now,
money do you think they made in the long run? That span of how many years did you say? 13?
11, but the network still existed outside of the United States. I think every other country was using the network. WWE in the United States, and this must have happened like when we stopped watching wrestling. They got a membership or a deal with NBC Universal, and then they basically transferred all of their streaming rights to Peacock. And I think that must have been like what, 2018, something like that. Um, but yeah, or Andres, did you have the network at the beginning? Did you ever buy the network?
I I think I borrowed somebody's.
He just got their login.
Yeah, I just got somebody's login, and they were cool enough to let me use it. But from what I remembered having, it was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's just we had every pay-per-view available. I think like they were promoting it with WrestleMania, right? So you can like sign up for
Hmm.
free and then just like watch that at least for the first like few weeks.
Yeah, they
I
did
actually
have a
have a
free
friend who
trial.
pretty much had the network for pretty much his entire lifespan for free because he just kept changing his email, getting like the the like 2 week trial. He just kept renewing it.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, that was it was cool. It was awesome. It was definitely very revolutionary when you first got it. You know, conveniently to watch everything you like, all the, like you said, all the documents, the pay-per-views and stuff. No, it was awesome.
Yeah,
I think
go
I had
for
one of the 1999 shirts too when they were selling those.
it. Just like the black shirt, and it just said
The black shirt with that, the 9.99. That's all it was. I'm like, oh, I'll buy it, and it was $20.
That's even wilder. And then when people see you on the street, they're like, "Why is this guy saying he's can sell himself for $9.99?" Like,
Yeah.
there's no context
No,
on it. I don't think.
no, there's nothing.
No.
Yeah,
Just the
Uh,
price.
maybe a WWE logo on the back. I don't remember.
they might have had the tag on it on the right hand corner. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long.
So, I mean, yeah, Chris, what do you think? I mean, I guess you were watching the network at the same time I was, but what was your um, idea of the network? What did you think of it?
I mean, I was hyped too. I could watch old Raw that I'd never watched before, and all these older pay-per-views that I just never got a chance to have. So I thought it was a pretty sweet idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they were one of the first people to actually get into the streaming business because I think that a lot of people were still kind of hesitant about streaming. This was 11 years ago. I think Netflix. I don't know who else was in the streaming business then, but it wasn't it wasn't that many. Hulu.
Hulu's where
Yeah,
you used to
Hulu and
catch
Netflix.
early NXT.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of them were not even existent when the network came out. So they had a very good foresight, you know, when it came to what the future is going to look like. Some might argue that what we currently have right now is basically, you know, the cost of cable. um, I mean, what do you guys think about, uh, you know, wrestling as a whole transitioning from television to streaming? Do you think it's a good idea? How do you feel about its transitioning from traditional television to streaming? Is it beneficial?
Seems to be
Yeah,
the way of the future with everything. Yeah.
everything's streaming.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, and I know people, you know, they say that it's basically like cable. I mean, I guess it is and it isn't, because I guess if there are shows that are on different streaming services and you can only get it there, then you're basically like adding quote unquote packages to like your streaming package, if you want to describe it that way. And then, you know, it might basically be like um, the full price of a cable package. Now, my argument is that a lot of people share their passwords and their accounts. And if you have a cable service, you can't necessarily like, you know, take the wiring from someone's house and then like plug it into your own house, you know, and then share it that way. Like the way you can share your streaming services is much easier with other people. So a lot of people split the cost that way. Um, there are some streaming services. I mean, like Netflix, I guess, is the most egregious one where they kind of you know, try and put a stop to it by, I think, doing like some kind of location services to make prevent you from watching. So you have to, you know, pay an extra $8 or whatever it is to that person's existing Netflix profile, so you can personally stream and not get like a message that says, "Hey, it doesn't look like you're in the right house. We're gonna send you a, you know, a security code or whatever to make sure that this is you." And I had to actually do that because I am under Arlene's Netflix account now. But I have to pay her $8 because yeah, I couldn't do it through her own. It was like, oh, you're not at the right house. Can you like verify?
Oh, damn.
So yeah, but
Crack it
like,
down.
but things like Max. I mean, I think half family members are using that. I'm on like Esau's Disney Plus. Arthur gave me his Paramount Plus.
Damn, you're
You
just
know,
outing
like,
everybody right now. They about to come for you,
Everybody's gonna
boy.
have a locked account.
They don't know who these people are. They're no addresses. Just those are fake names. Those aren't real people. But yeah, the benefits of streaming, you're able to share all these with a bunch of people, and honestly, I think these streaming services are still making gangbusters when it comes to regardless if people are sharing their streaming or not. And the other thing is that these are all on demand. With cable, you had DVR, but then you basically have to like record an actual show that also includes commercials. So, with a streaming service, and this is also, I guess, the assumption that you're not paying for ads. You can, watch it on demand whenever you want, and you don't have to worry about, advertisements unless you're paying for ads. So again, I think there's differences when it comes to, streaming services and cable, and it's definitely much more positive. But I want to get into the transition for WWE to Netflix and for AEW to Max. So I guess we can start with WWE and Netflix. What do you guys think? I guess taking into account Netflix did a couple of previous live streaming events. They obviously did the infamous boxing pay-per-view recently. They also, I think, did some formula. I think they did Formula One, and I think they also tried to do a live version of Love Is Blind, some kind of reunion, and that didn't go that great. So, how do you guys feel the switch to Netflix will impact WWE's viewer experience? How do you think that's going to work? Chris, I guess I'll start with you.
I mean, I'd be curious to know how many people still have cable, because I think even if you have a basic cable package, USA is still available to you. But I think Netflix has been around for long enough where I think many people do have Netflix. But the issue then is, do they have fast enough internet to have seamless streaming? I think is the main issue. So I think that's the current challenge, just based on the Mike Tyson fight. Maybe it's a server thing, or they can't handle the load of people that were essentially watching it, and that's why it was kind of buffering so bad. So that's something they would have to figure out. But yeah, I mean, I'm hyped for it personally, as far as like me, because I don't pay for cable. You know what I mean? So the only way I can watch AEW or Raw or whatever is to hijack the wife's family's Xfinity account stream, and then it's a whole hassle. So I think it's just gonna be easier to just jump on Netflix whenever to watch Raw. So
yeah.
And is it gonna be then? Are these episodes gonna be then cataloged then, like library, or how's it gonna work?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, like,
Yep.
so, like, with the Tyson, like, that boxing pay-per-view, like, it finished, but then you can just watch the replay afterwards. So even if you're not watching it live, you should just, click on it and then just watch it, even if it's, like, at a slightly later time, or, the next day or whatever. It'll be like, you know, the network, like, PLEs, basically.
So Peacock will be no more.
Not that well. See, that's the thing. So with Netflix, every place but the United States will have everything on Netflix. They'll have Raw, they'll have SmackDown, I think NXT, all the PLEs, all that WWE hub on Peacock. It's all going to be on Netflix for the global audience. And in the United States, there's still a streaming deal between WWE and NBC, I think, for Peacock to have their PLEs through 2026.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, like, in the United States, wrestling fans are going to have a very splintered viewing diet, because you're going to have Raw on Netflix, a streaming service. You're gonna have SmackDown on USA, a cable channel. You're gonna have wrestling PLEs on Peacock, another streaming service. You're gonna have NXT on CW, a public free TV channel. So in WWE in the United States, your entire like WWE viewership is splintered, which kind of sucks for American wrestling fans, which is like WWE's headquarters, and you know,
Right. That's so weird.
so
But
that's kind of
legalese
crappy.
though.
Yeah,
Can't
I mean,
break the
yeah,
contract.
it's existing contracts that they had through, they've already determined and decided they're going to have it. Um, I'm curious why they still gave SmackDown to USA Network. I don't know why that is, because I mean, I thought it was around the same time as their negotiations with Raw to Netflix. So I don't know. I don't know why they're like, all right, we'll give you SmackDown. Instead of just giving it to Netflix. But
Probably
yeah,
just a long relationship.
yeah. So I think if you want to work around to that, you can. And I haven't done this yet. I haven't tested this theory, but if you have a VPN, you might be able to watch all of those, streaming services and stuff. I've never tried it. But I think you could only do that if you have a really good VPN like Nord. And then if you want to pay for Nord VPN, you're basically paying for like a cable package anyway. So, either way you slice it, it's not great. So for, American fans, we'll have to wait until like 2026 for most of it to
Watchwrestling.ai it is.
Yeah. Or AE or whatever it is. Yeah.
It changes all the time. Yeah, they're gonna lose me when AEW's on Max. I feel bad.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because like with at least, well, I guess, we'll just rope them into this conversation too right now. But yeah, AEW is on Max, or will be on Max, and they're gonna simulcast on it. So I just don't see why WWE can't do that either. I mean, I guess because Warner Brothers owns those channels, so that's why it's being simulcast.
Yeah.
Netflix doesn't have that kind of infrastructure. If WWE did this on Peacock, then they could simulcast on USA and Peacock, but Netflix paid a bigger price and it worked out. I mean, and they're technically not wrong. If they're trying to appeal to a global audience, Netflix is the number one streaming service across the entire globe. And their intention is to put wrestling in as many, households as you can. So I will be curious to see how viewership is affected, how because people keep talking about these rating wars and that kind of crap. Like, honestly, it's fun to poke at, when it's like NXT versus Dynamite or whatever. But honestly, it does feel very like late '90s, like Monday Night War stuff. It does feel like a bygone era in terms of like calculating what success is. Now you can say that low attendance numbers can show you your success, but I think if you're just relying on the data point of TV ratings, I don't think that is as beneficial because you have to calculate everything else like social media, YouTube video streams, like how many people watch your clips on YouTube. I think that's a big important thing because a lot of people don't sit through 3 hours of wrestling television. I mean, I would, but your average person won't.
I think
So-
the Big Boom AJ match I think is like the number third or fourth of 2024 as far as like viewership for like wrestling stuff.
Yeah,
It's like some
it's
crazy
top
number.
five.
It's
Yeah,
behind Hendry and Taker.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean that's pretty big. That's good for AEW as far as like eyes on the product kind of a thing. I think that was a smart move on their end. And now
Yeah, I agree.
is he a full-time wrestler now? Is that what's happening? Is
I
that
feel like
what
he injured his
Keep
foot. What
wrestling.
was that?
He's gonna keep wrestling. He already said it.
That'll be interesting to see. I mean, this whole experiment he's done with his kids, I think, was a way for him to get back into wrestling.
Worked
Which is,
out.
I mean,
Worked out.
is it though? Because I mean, like he wrestled like 20 years ago, essentially, like when he was actually doing any
Yeah.
kind of like wrestling. So
Yeah,
it's
but
not like it was like
I
in the
think
this is how I'm gonna do it.
but I think since then he was trying to find a way to get some kind of some virality, I guess, like get like famous through like other things because he's made like other attempts in the past um, to like get popular, and he's found this niche or whatever you want to call it with Costco, and basically using his kids, and then they kept expanding this universe, whatever you want to call it, with these
The
other.
Boom universe, the
Yeah,
Boomiverse.
yeah, it's the Boomiverse. To expand it, like I think it's cringe, obviously, but I mean it's not catered for me. It's like for younger kids and that kind of stuff. So you have at it. Like I obviously think it's cringe, and
I
I
mean,
wasn't.
it's
Yeah,
it's
but
it's a dad with his having
yeah,
fun
it's a
with his
dad with his
kids.
kid. Yeah, like eat your chicken bakes and your double chocolate cookies,
Get it
whatever it's
right.
called.
Get it right. Double what?
Double chunk, double chunk. I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna keep
Double chunk
butchering
chocolate chip cookie.
You're gonna think about it next time you go to Costco, though.
it. Yeah, yeah, I am. And I'm
Can we
sure they
just
probably have a big deal with Costco
can we
because
just highlight that big Justice spear? I mean, that spear was ridiculously
that was
good.
clean.
That was clean. I mean, shout out to QT Marshall though. He sold that shit like a champ. He came
That's
down
true.
with it. He went ah.
That's true. Yeah.
Super.
Like if he just stood there like a brick, it probably wouldn't have gone that well.
It was.
It would
I
have
was
injured
like.
the kid's shoulder.
I was hoping he wouldn't trip. I was like, please make this the cleanest thing. Make it like a 10 out of 10 landing kid, and he did it.
There was a slight like maybe he was gonna trip, but he didn't. Like he stuck the landing. Um, but yeah, again, like YouTube numbers, going back to that, very important um, for like today's landscape. So, how do you guys feel like they're gonna like? I guess Netflix has access to these data points and streaming. I feel like now that because they're in a global streaming service, like you can't be then using like comparing it to like other like ratings, because I feel like it was always kind of like insulated to the United States. I guess you can still pull numbers and just say how many people in the US are streaming it, but now because Netflix is a global streaming service, I think they will always just be like, hey, we have like 100 million household watching Monday Night Raw. Like they're not going to say 10, 15 million. Like you got people in freaking India. That's like one of the most popular wrestling, or one of the most popular programs in India is wrestling. So just think about the amount of people who watch there, in Japan, in Europe. I mean, they're never going to go back to just United States numbers. They're just going to be touting how many people across the globe are watching, right?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Like, what does a Wrestling Observer weekly review look like now?
We don't care about that nerd. Next question.
Ah, God bless MVP.
Man, MVP. I think he was towing the line between like, he it was in
Shooting or
character.
was he working?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I felt like he was also just legit annoyed too, or maybe like because it reached that point where like it felt like Tony Khan had to be like, oh no, I'll answer your question, because he was literally just like giving these guys a hard time.
I
who
mean,
are
MJF
asking
does it
questions.
every time, but so it's like
That's true. That's true.
He should allow him to do that on
YMA
some
does
level,
it
and
too.
these fucking media people should just play along, because I mean, it's
Yeah.
hey man, he's just playing the
Part of the
gimmick.
show.
Yeah.
Part of the show. Welcome.
Like, if you're butthurt, like that's on you. But like, if you're butthurt, that means they're doing their job correctly. That you're getting upset about it. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree. So I mean, let's keep talking about AEW, because they have their streaming, and I think theirs all starts in January as well, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting,
wait.
because They both started at the same time. So with AEW in the United States, that is going to be Collision and Dynamite on Max, right? And PLEs. But PLEs, are they going to be at a discounted rate instead of like just free? Is that
I'm
true?
sure. I'm sure it's gonna be like when you buy a movie on Max. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Oh
they're
yeah.
like making you
Well,
rent. Yeah,
maybe not on Max, but like on Amazon. Disney
yeah.
Plus used to have it when they like had like it
Theater
just
releases.
came out from theaters.
Yeah,
They
I
were
think
like, "Oh,
Max
you
did
can
that
buy it."
too.
Did they?
I felt like I bought a movie on there, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I've been on Max and I've never bought anything on there, but now that AEW is going to be on there, I am curious to see what that looks like. And I think it's also part of like Max's bigger like live streaming bundle that they're going to do. It's not just a AEW, I don't think. It's part of a bigger deal. So, yeah, that should be interesting. But what do you guys think about um, AEW pay-per-views on Max? Do you feel like it's a good idea to still have it so you pay for the pay-per-view? Do you feel like that's a good business decision?
I think it's because they made such a killing. I think initially from like up until this point where their pay-per-view buys were pretty high. So I'm guessing they just don't want to lose that revenue stream
Hmm.
completely. So they're probably that's why they're charging it because it seems like they do really well with pay per view buys. So that's the logic I think as to why they would still be charging, or maybe it's like some kind of a weird deal with Max, I guess. But if I
Yeah.
had to guess, I think it's because they've just been that's like their most profitable thing.
Yeah, I mean, this will allow me to watch AEW more frequently or even like the day of because yeah, again, it's another thing where it's like, oh, we're on TBS and TNT. I'm gonna have to catch the replay in some form or fashion, or I'm gonna have to catch the highlights on YouTube because I don't really have any other option besides watchwrestling.ae or AI or whatever it's called.
Yo,
Hey, sometimes they don't even cut the whole episode, bro. Sometimes you get to watch it uninterrupted.
right.
Right, right.
Yeah, there you go.
So, you know, it'll be nice to have it on like a solid official platform where I could just watch it high quality, hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll see what their streaming looks like. I
Or
think Max has
ADP.
done streaming before. So hopefully it's not like a, Mike Tyson fiasco, but I guess we'll see.
Now,
But I
will
guess,
they?
yeah.
Sorry. Will they?
No, I
Do
was
you
gonna
think
say
they'll?
let me just add this, then you can ask the question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess it's going to happen later in 2025 that Max will offer to AEW events for a discounted price. So right now, I guess it's going to be shared at a later date. So starting in January, it's going to be Collision Dynamite simulcasts, and then pay-per-views are later in the year.
What's the pay per view after World's End? Is that like months from then? I guess. Is that what it is? It's like
Is it
March, probably
Revolution?
Revolution, right? They
Yeah.
have to be Revolution in March.
I thought they had one every month now. No.
But it felt
No,
like
they still have some gaps.
Okay.
And then they also don't have gaps where it's like all in, all out.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, are they gonna have the catalog, the back catalog on there,
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
It should.
like
That'd
all
be great.
the previous pay per views and all the Dynamites
Season
and
1 Dynamite.
oh man, All Out, that very first All Out or All
Yeah.
In. Sorry. What about Ring of Honor?
No, that's
Is
a
that
good question. I actually don't think it's part of the deal.
Not yet. That's
it's still
probably
Honor
why.
Club?
Yeah, but I'm sure that has allegedly that has a little bit to do with why Jericho's champ again.
Mm,
Help them
because
find a deal.
they think like, oh, you have Jericho Jericho, and the executives who don't know any better, like, hey, yeah,
I
hey,
know Chris
this
Jericho.
guy, yeah. I feel like that's probably a big chunk of it. But I mean, it's good for AEW because apparently the deal what they reached with Max is it's almost like $150 million per year, which is pretty good. I mean, if you're Pepsi and you're competing with Coca-Cola, that's honestly still pretty good. And, Tony Khan still has his, football money, oil money. I don't know what else that they're making money off of, but
Outworld.
Oil money.
Outworld,
You said Outworld?
Outworld money. Yeah, I mean, they got a pretty good structure. I don't see them going away anytime soon. WCW had that issue where they couldn't find a deal for, you know, Thunder and Nitro, and AEW has, I think, lasted longer than Nitro now, and they got a deal with WB Warner Brothers Discovery. So
Bischoff
know.
must be seething. Arrgh!
I am curious to see what Bischoff will say like once it starts streaming in January. I don't take them seriously. I think I listen to like people like him and Cornette because I get a kick out of it. Like I think it's entertaining that they get annoyed by it. Like that makes it funny to me. But I don't take their conversation as gospel.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, back to the streaming stuff. How do you feel like? Do you think AEW's? What do you think AEW's viewership is going to look like now that it's going to simulcast on Max? Do you feel like it's going to increase?
I think it should. I don't think that there's nothing like there's no easy way to get TBS or TNT like in terms of streaming.
Yep.
Like you're dropping like 40 plus.
Yeah.
And I think the price of Max is, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Because you also have like obviously have like other movies and things that are there.
Max streams sports, so it's like you don't just get boring cable.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get all the extra stuff, that you don't like. Any other thoughts on that? How do you guys think viewership is going to look like, Chris?
Depends on again, like what are they even like specifically looking at? Is it like the live viewership? Is it the views after it airs, like all those things? But I think overall, if we're just talking just live specifically, I think it'll bump up some like 10% at least. I think 10 to 20%. Why not?
Crack that milli.
Yeah. Because it's just more convenient. I think there are a lot of people that just generally just don't have cable, and that's the only way. So now you're like at that point, it's like you have to be a wrestling fan, one, pretty hardcore, and then you also have to have cable, right? But if you are a wrestling fan that doesn't have cable, that's probably a pretty big chunk. I'd be curious to see what's that specific percentage of people that are wrestling fans, hardcore, that watch AEW but just don't have cable, and they wind up watching YouTube because that's how they catch up on AEW. So I think it's going to be. My prediction is it's going to bump up the numbers pretty significantly.
Yeah. Andres,
Let's say too, it might bring in new viewership too, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of people probably have it too. So yeah, I can definitely see a bump in the viewership too as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it'll be. I mean, like it'll be like more in your face too. Because when you boot up like a Netflix, for example, or a Max, if there's something big that's streaming, it's like in your face. They're like, "Hey, look what's currently, being played on Netflix. It's a big ass picture."
You watch.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
So I mean, like that's gonna. I think that'll be on both Netflix for WWE because I'm super excited for Raw in January because they're gonna pull out all of the stops for Netflix for Raw on Netflix, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, Andres, what did you think about viewership? You're saying like probably higher.
Yeah, like a
what they're
bump,
having now.
like kind of to Chris's point, a bump. But I also think it'll bring in new viewers as well,
Yeah.
because people will be, like you said, jumping on in and like, oh, this is live. Like, oh, maybe this is good. Like they'll watch AEW at that point. So I think it'll bring in newer viewership as well, possibly
Yeah,
newer fans too.
I agree. Because I feel like, if you look at you when you always see like these dirt sheets and all these news pieces about like ratings and stuff and how it's like 0.75 or whatever, it was you've got 1.5 million people, and then when you like see like YouTube clips or even like social media like views on certain things like on X, like video clip views, there's clearly a disconnect between that, and I feel like sometimes that perception of like the TV ratings for whatever reason gets imprinted in people's brain. And I feel like, now
Sheep.
wrestling, streaming, like the sports and stuff, it's just catching up to modern times. Like streaming has felt like a modern household staple since 2014, and now those aspects of our lives that just got were ingrained in cable television are finally just kind of let loose. Those cords are cut, and they're finally in those, joined the streaming era that has been around for at least a decade. Um, and I just see major opportunities for both companies because it is ease of access. It will give you more opportunities. Like again, people have stuff to do. They don't always have time to watch, your shows. Um, Honestly, speaking of shows, we're talking about like their regular simulcasts, but what about like other programming that could be on Netflix and on Max? Whether besides like the PLEs and the shows, what other programs do you guys hope maybe WWE or AEW put into like the streaming platforms besides those?
The
Total Divas is
Marine,
back.
the Chaperone, Knucklehead.
Total Divas.
So do
David, what would you want to see like from WWE or AEW in their respective streaming like libraries?
I'm sure they'll start not like doing more biographies. Like WWE does those WWE 24s too. I'd like to see some of those from AEW, just like the setups for the big shows and all that.
Yeah,
I think that'd be cool.
I agree. I mean, like, there's a lot of those things that you also see, even like with AEW, where they have like a lot of YouTube shows,
Mm-hmm.
like Hey EW and those kinds of things. I feel like you could even like put them on AEW's, the Max's streaming
Like
service.
their tab.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
tab, like kind of like how WWE has with Peacock and how they have all those documentaries and things. All that stuff will be transferred over to Netflix, not in America, I don't think, because Peacock. But eventually, and starting January 1st globally, it will. So, Andres, what about you? What do you think? What other kinds of programming would you want to see from like WWE and AEW when they enter their streaming era?
Actually, I would like to check out the All In. Actually, unfortunately, they didn't really get into AEW till a little later, so I actually missed a lot of that like big first boom when it came out,
Mhm.
in the first season. So that'd be something really cool to see because I did see all the rave for it. Like I couldn't help but escape because AEW was like huge when it like first really took off.
Yep.
Um, and actually, Chaperone's a very good movie. So be quiet, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Hell
no,
yeah, dude.
I actually did enjoy it thoroughly, but it was. I'm sure if I watched it now, I'd be like, "What the hell?" But
Did you like Knucklehead with the
I
Big
don't think
Show?
I've seen Knucklehead. I've seen the Marine 1, 2, and 3. Those
Which
are
one had
No
the
more
Miz? Was that
BS.
Marine 4?
no. I didn't know there was a 4 to be honest.
Yeah, I think it was straight to DVD Miz movie.
Yeah, probably.
Because Marine 1
Um.
is Cena. Marine 2, was it Randy Orton? No. I think Randy Orton was supposed to be the Marine, but then it was John Cena. Ted DiBiase was a Marine
Oh, he
Junior.
was. Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe that
Ted
was Marine
DiBiase
3.
Senior.
It was like
Yeah,
4, I think.
Junior. Oh, well, then maybe Miz was in Marine 5.
Who cares? I'm curious now, like how many Marine movies there were.
Yeah,
Look it up right now. We got this freaking electric brick right here. It's like, oh, let me just look it up. Crazy.
Right.
Yeah, Chris. So Chris, so how about you in terms of like other programming? We talked about like documentaries and things. Is there anything like unique that they haven't like done yet that you would want? Like there's like the Netflix budget, the Endeavor WB budget. Do you think there's going to be more documentaries like Vince McMahon, like that type of stuff?
Nah, I think well, it's probably gonna be stuff like where you saw like on WWE Network. It'd be like Table of Four and all these like looking for like antique stuff or like programs that are kind of like that. I think there'll probably be a lot of that stuff.
I don't know, like WWE superstars just doing cameos and like Bridgerton and
Yeah, they might even do UFC crossovers stuff. Who knows? Like they'll probably do some UFC stuff. Um, I'm curious how it's gonna affect programming though, like how they do Raw, like what kind of things they're allowed. Because like when you have a TV network, they're like, oh, advertisers, blah 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 blah
oh
blah.
yeah, that's a good question.
Like what does that mean for both AEW and well, more specifically for WWE? Because technically AEW is still on cable television. I don't know
Yeah,
if
that's
they
what's
like
simulcast.
advertising is a weird thing.
I think that might just have the commercials because if it's being simulcast, they will either like because I think that's interesting because if you pay for like an ad-free option on Max, but I think that might be thrown out the window because they'll consider live streaming as like a different entity than if you're watching like a TV show or movie. So they might just include the advertisements during their simulcast. But I think it's different for Netflix because Netflix, it's not like Netflix has a cable channel, like it's just a streaming service. So are there going to be commercials during it? I don't think so, right? I think and they're dropping it down to 2 hours for Raw, I'm pretty sure. Um so that'll be interesting. And also how live events work because when you are at a WWE production, um if it's not a PLE, you have breaks in between. Like the match is happening, and then they go to commercial break, and then they have like these extended periods of kind of roaming around, walking around, and then they get back to TV, and then they get back in the action. Or
Right.
if there's a segment, or if they run off, it's dark, and then they use those opportunities to like plug their own like WWE production stuff. So I'm curious to see what that looks like now for WWE going forward with Netflix. That should be interesting.
For AEW in places where they don't have like commercial breaks where they catch it full stream. I know for like in match when it's a commercial break for us, like what the announcers will keep announcing. Like they'll say, "Oh,
Mm,
we'll be back for the commercial break," but then they just keep going.
picture in
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, and then I know, and most of the time, like I'm guessing when they gotta like clean up the ring and stuff, it goes to like just this like still waiting screen.
Hmm.
So maybe sure WWE will try to find some filler time for all that, like some type of recap.
Yeah,
The good old like SmackDown replay and Raw replay like they used to do.
I think that'd be
So
smart.
yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up here, but I guess I'll have one more question. I guess my question for you guys is: they both have deals now, and of course, deals can always end. Um, Same with like TV deals because none of them have ever been on one channel, consistently like forever. Like WWE was on, I think it was on TNT or it was on USA Network. It was on TNT. It was on Spike.
Yep.
It went back to USA Network, and then I guess it's stayed there since what 2006, 2005, something like that. And AEW, I mean, I guess they've been on TBS and TNT since their inception. but what do you see for the future of these products? Do you feel like it'll be successful and WWE will just be a Netflix brand forever? Or is there gonna be a hiccup and they're gonna be like, all right, we're going back to, man, I don't even know what that looks like. Like, how do you transfer libraries and things like that? They're not gonna. Well, I feel like once you go into streaming, I'll answer this myself and I'll let you guys answer. I think, and I hope and I think that these will be um, long-term relationships and deals that will just be a constant. I hope like WWE and Netflix will be, like it'll just be part of the Netflix brand. I think that should be beneficial, for everybody, and I hope it just will expand WWE and its viewership globally. And I truly think it's just going to help the business and the product grow even more than where it is, and that's my sincere hope. Because if the deal ends, I mean, I just don't know what that looks like. Do you just shop around for another streaming service? You delete all your libraries, then you just migrate it all to like a new streaming service? I mean, I guess you could do that. That's what they did with the network. Um, but I foresee for both of them, for AEW and WWE, to stay around on both of their respective streaming services, unless for like humanity's cultural like advancements, like we come up with a new concept to watch content, something that I haven't thought of yet. That will happen in 20 years, because no one was foreseeing streaming 20 years ago. So that'll be interesting. But Chris, what do you think? What do you think about the future of streaming for um, wrestling?
I mean, it's got at least a decade in it, I believe, because it's just kind of just tapping that. The live stream is very new. So a live stream, I mean, they can at least squeeze a decade out of it, and then from there, who knows? But 10 years is plenty of time to do a lot of stuff, do a lot of thinking, take all the information that you've gathered over 10 years and see where you kind of want to pivot, because I'm sure they think about these things. So, but at least a decade from either or. AEW, Tony Khan family. I mean, they got money. If they want to keep pumping it into AEW, they can do it forever, as long as they want. And then it could be whatever medium it needs to be. I would almost say similarly to WWE, unless there's controversies and stuff like that happen. But yeah, I mean, at least a decade for both. I would say a decade of streaming live, because I think that's still kind of a new concept for streaming, because up until this point it was just movies that are not live, and that's just kind of how streaming works. So a lot of stuff is going to start to slowly kind of taper into, I think, a live streaming thing. So
Yeah, I mean, Peacock has been doing it because like their bread and butter was like Olympics and sports, so they've been pretty pro at it. I think they actually even made a joke, like they did a jab at Netflix after the Tyson fight. Um, it was something like, "How's your day going?" or something like that, with a wink and a nudge, like the morning after the streaming, because Peacock doesn't have those issues. Um, so yeah, I think it's a new world for Netflix and also Max to a certain degree, because they were also just kind of like sporadic. It isn't like constant, like streaming sports and that kind of stuff. David, what do you think about the future of AEW and WWE for Triple H and Shao Kahn? Does their streaming look bright?
I'm sure they'll just stay to streaming until. I mean, the only thing that streaming's gonna happen is it's gonna get better, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
I doubt it's gonna get worse. I mean, not to get all digital, but once it gets to Web3 and they figure out Web3 live streaming, I'm sure speeds are gonna catch up, and we're not gonna be worried about whole Netflix buffering.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, our streaming speeds, our TV resolutions, everything is increasing. I think it halted a little bit because we went analog, HD, like 720, 1080p, and then 4K wasn't that much far along. But I feel like commercially, like in households, 4K has been basically like the standard and the main top thing for 10 years. I feel like I don't think 8K has kind of really broken through. Nor I don't know if there's even that much of a difference in 8K. Maybe that's why. But yeah, it'll just keep getting better. We'll see. And Andres, what do you think about the future of WWE and AEW in streaming? Do you think they'll have stable relationships with Netflix and Warner Brothers?
Yeah, I think going forward they will. I mean, it's only beneficial for probably both parties, really. I mean, like both companies going onto Netflix and what was the other one? Paramount? Oh,
No,
Max.
Max, yeah, Warner Brothers.
It's gonna probably, like I was saying earlier, like when you log into your account, the live thing is playing, you might be intrigued because it might be bringing new fans along too. So I think it's only beneficial for both parties. And honestly, like we were saying before, everything's kind of going that route with streaming, anyways. You know, we're just really like tapping into the future with this, and yeah, it's super beneficial for everybody.
I agree. I guess we'll see when January hits. I honestly hope for the best. It'll make my viewing life easier to have it all in one spot, because there are programs that I currently have, and they're just gonna magically appear one day on my screen, and that'll be fantastic. But that's a wrap for this episode of Chi-Town Shoot Podcast. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, rate us, and leave your feedback. Tune in next time for more wrestling madness. Until then, keep marking out.